base form.
Pre-time skip Luffy struggled against opponents who would later become warm-up fights. His rubber powers seem almost comical at first, stretching punches that look goofy and bouncing cannonballs like it's some kind of playground game. But here's what most people miss. This isn't just about raw strength. It's about the framework that makes everything else possible. Those basic rubber abilities are building the foundation for techniques that will eventually break the laws of physics themselves. After 2 years of training with Rayleigh, something incredible happens. His base power increases tenfold without using any special techniques. Post-time skip Luffy can one-shot pacifistas that previously required his entire crew working together to defeat. That's not a small improvement. That's a complete transformation of his baseline capabilities. Think of it like upgrading from a basic engine to a supercharged one. Every gear that comes after benefits from this massive foundation boost. The raw materials are the same, but the performance ceiling just shot through the roof. The gap between these two versions is already staggering. Pre-time skip Luffy throws punches that stretch and hit hard. Post-time skip Luffy throws punches that can shatter steel and move faster than most people can track, all without activating any special forms. This baseline transformation sets up the exponential leaps that will literally break reality by the end. The Haki mastery alone changes how every single technique works. Advanced armament lets him destroy things from the inside, a later development in Luffy's Haki that recontextualizes many attacks. Observation Haki gives him superhuman reflexes that make his previous fighting style look clumsy. What started as simple rubber stretching just became the platform for godlike power. Every transformation we'll see builds on this foundation. Without this dramatic base upgrade, none of the reality-bending techniques would be possible. The rubber boy who struggled with basic enemies just became capable of fighting the strongest beings in the world. But raw power and Haki weren't enough. Luffy needed something more creative, something that would turn his own body into a weapon. Gear second. The answer came through pure biological innovation. Luffy literally discovered how to turn his heart into a high-performance engine, and the results were absolutely game-changing. Gear second debuts against Blueno in Enies lobby, and suddenly Luffy moves faster than the eye can track. We're watching a guy who was getting outpaced by basic CP9 agents suddenly match their signature speed techniques through pure creativity. He's literally pumping his blood at superhuman speeds, turning his entire body into an overheated machine that operates beyond normal human limits. The visual is striking and immediately tells you something fundamental has changed. His skin turns reddish from the increased blood flow. Steam rises from his body, and his movements blur into after-images that make tracking him nearly impossible. It's like watching someone shift from walking pace to motorcycle speed in an instant. For the first time, we see Luffy match the CP9's signature Soru technique through pure ingenuity rather than years of specialized training. While they spent decades mastering movement techniques, Luffy just figured out how to overclock his own biology. The gap between his normal speed and gear second is so dramatic that it catches everyone completely off guard. But there's a dark cost lurking beneath the surface that makes this technique tedious to use. This isn't just harmless speed enhancement. Early appearances implied serious strain, with Oda suggesting the method risks shortening his lifespan if overused. Think of it like redlining a car engine constantly. You get incredible performance, but you're also destroying the machine in the process. The early versions put massive strain on his body, making it a desperate last resort rather than a casual upgrade. Luffy can't just spam this technique. Each use brings him closer to serious physical damage. The power comes with real consequences that force strategic thinking about when it's worth the risk. What makes this transformation brilliant is how it reframes combat entirely. Speed becomes just as deadly as raw power when you can move fast enough to land techniques like Gomu Gomu no Jet Gatling before opponents can react. Blueno goes from dominating the fight to being completely overwhelmed in seconds. Post-time skip, Luffy masters selective activation, boosting individual limbs without the full body toll. He can enhance just his arms for faster punches, or just his legs for quick movement, reducing the overall strain while maintaining tactical advantage. This single technique proves that Luffy's greatest weapon isn't his rubber body. It's his ability to push any concept to its absolute limit. But speed alone wasn't enough for the toughest opponents. Sometimes you need to hit harder, not faster. Gear third. What if I told you that inflating your bones could generate enough force to shatter steel? We're talking about taking the basic concept of blowing up a balloon and turning it into a weapon that can demolish buildings. Gear third makes its full debut against Rob Luffy during Enies Lobby, and the power scaling jumps into completely new territory. This isn't just bigger punches. This is Luffy discovering that size and physics can combine to create devastating force multipliers. He bites his thumb, blows air into his bones, and suddenly his limbs inflate to giant proportions that dwarf his normal body. The technique creates attacks like Gomu Gomu no Gigant Rifle and Gomu Gomu no Elephant Gun that can break through seemingly impenetrable defenses. Lucci's iron-hard Tekai, which previously made him nearly invulnerable, suddenly becomes useless against attacks that hit with the force of giants. The visual impact is immediate and shocking. A normal-sized person throwing punches the size of buildings while maintaining his regular torso and head. But early Gear third comes with a humiliating drawback that almost makes it unusable in serious fights. After each use, the air escapes and Luffy shrinks to child size, becoming completely vulnerable for several minutes. His voice gets squeaky, his movements become clumsy, and he can't fight back effectively against any serious opponent. Imagine having the power to level buildings, but becoming defenseless right after. It's a tactical nightmare. You get one massive hit, maybe two if you're lucky. Then you're basically out of the fight, while hoping your enemies don't capitalize on your weakness. The Lucci fight showcases both the devastating potential and the dangerous limitations perfectly. Post-timeskip training eliminated the shrinking drawback completely, turning this from a risky gamble into reliable, heavy artillery. Luffy learns to control the airflow properly, preventing the embarrassing aftermath that made the technique so dangerous to use. Think of it like learning to deflate a balloon slowly, instead of letting it fly around the room. Combined with advanced armament haki, techniques like Red Rock prove that size plus skill equals unstoppable force. The giant limbs now carry invisible armor that makes them even more destructive. What started as inflated bones becomes weaponized physics that can challenge the strongest opponents without leaving Luffy helpless afterward. But even giant-sized attacks have their limits. Sometimes you need more than just raw power. You need a complete transformation that redefines what's possible. Gear 4th Boundman. Gear 4th Boundman debuts against Doflamingo in Dressrosa and immediately establishes a new tier of power that seems almost unfair. The moment Luffy activates this form, the entire dynamic of the fight shifts from struggling underdog to overwhelming force. This isn't just muscle inflation like we saw with Gear 3rd. It's muscle inflation combined with armament haki, creating a nearly indestructible fighter. Luffy's body becomes this bizarre combination of tank and rocket launcher, bouncing around the battlefield while delivering devastating strikes that can level city blocks. His limbs inflate but maintain their hardness through constant haki coating, creating weapons that hit like cannonballs while staying flexible enough for his rubber physics to work. Gear 4th is haki intensive and must be actively sustained, which creates its strict time limit. Kong Gun and Leo Bazooka showcase raw, destructive power that can overwhelm even Warlord-level opponents. These techniques generate force that makes his previous attacks look gentle by comparison. Kong Gun alone can break through Doflamingo's strongest string defenses, which previously seemed impossible to penetrate through normal attacks. The aerial mobility is game-changing in ways that completely rewrite combat strategy. Luffy can essentially fly by bouncing off the air itself, using compressed air and his rubber properties to stay airborne indefinitely. The constant bouncing keeps him airborne and unpredictable, making him nearly impossible to pin down. Think of it like turning the entire atmosphere into trampolines that only he can use. But there's a cruel timer ticking in the background that makes every second count. Gear 4th has a strict time limit based on how much haki he can maintain, and when it ends, Luffy is helpless for about 10 minutes. His haki depletes entirely, leaving him unable to use any advanced techniques or even defend properly. The Doflamingo fight becomes a race against time, with Luffy's crew having to protect him during his vulnerable recovery periods. The stakes get incredibly tense because everyone knows that if Doflamingo reaches Luffy during those 10 minutes, the fight is over. This form proves that Luffy has officially entered the big leagues. But true mastery still requires perfect timing and team coordination. Raw power means nothing if you can't finish the job before the clock runs out. But what happens when pure offense isn't the answer to every problem? Gear 4th Tankman. Sometimes you need to flip the entire approach and become an immovable object instead of an unstoppable force. Gear 4th Tankman showed up against Cracker in Whole Cake Island and completely changes how we think about Gear 4th's possibilities. While Boundman focused on overwhelming power and mobility, Tankman takes a completely different approach. This form sacrifices speed and mobility for near-impenetrable defense and devastating counterattacks that can end fights in a single blow. Luffy becomes this massive, inflated fortress that can absorb punishment that would destroy most fighters. His body expands far beyond boundman proportions, creating layers of rubber and hockey that work like advanced armor plating. Think of it like turning yourself into a living bunker that can also launch missiles. You're not going anywhere fast, but nothing's getting through your defenses. The strategy shifts completely from everything we've seen before. Instead of overwhelming opponents with speed or raw power, Tankman endures and punishes. Luffy becomes willing to take hits that would flatten normal fighters, knowing his enhanced durability can handle the damage, while setting up perfect counterattack opportunities. Cracker's endless biscuit soldiers seem like an impossible challenge, until Luffy literally eats his way to victory. For hours, he consumes wave after wave of biscuit warriors, with Nami's help weakening them through rain. Luffy effectively turned Cracker's soldiers into fuel for the form, converting an opponent's strength into Luffy's mass and power. The cannonball finisher demonstrates how defensive forms can still deliver fight-ending offense when the moment is right. After absorbing Cracker's attack completely, Tankman launches him clear off the island with a single technique. The fight that seemed impossible to win ends almost instantly once the counterattack lands. Mobility is severely limited in exchange for near-impenetrable defense. But when you can end fights with one hit, speed becomes less important. Tankman proves that Gear 4th isn't just one technique. It's a flexible system that adapts to different combat scenarios. This form shows Luffy's growing tactical intelligence, choosing endurance over aggression when the situation demands it. But what happens when your opponent can see every move coming before you even make it? Gear 4th Snakeman. Snakeman was built to beat Future Sight by launching punches that accelerate and change direction mid-flight. Gear 4th Snakeman debuted against Katakuri in Whole Cake Island, specifically designed to counter impossible speed and prediction abilities that made victory seem hopeless. This form maintains Luffy's agility while introducing something completely new: attacks that evolve unpredictably after they're already launched. This transformation keeps Luffy lean and fast for speed and precision rather than bulk, coating his limbs in concentrated hockey that creates devastating striking power. The visual difference is striking. Instead of the bulky powerhouse we saw with Boundman, Snakeman creates a sleek fighter built for precision combat. The Python technique lets Luffy's attacks weave around defenses, making traditional dodging almost useless against his unpredictable strikes. Think of it like throwing punches that can corner around walls. The attacks start in one direction, then curve and accelerate toward their target from completely different angles. Against an opponent who can predict every move, Snakeman creates attacks that change course after Katakuri has already seen their original trajectory. Katakuri's Future Sight becomes significantly less effective when the punches themselves refuse to follow straight lines. The Mochi defenses that previously seemed impenetrable suddenly can't keep up with strikes that accelerate and shift direction mid-flight. The Katakuri fight lasts over 10 hours, becoming a battle of endurance, adaptation, and pure willpower that pushes both fighters beyond their absolute limits. This isn't just physical combat. It's a test of who can maintain their techniques longer while constantly adapting to new strategies. Python-like moves and accelerating punches create a relentless assault that eventually overwhelms even Future Sight. What makes this transformation special isn't just the power. It's the precision and tactical flexibility that shows Luffy's growing combat intelligence. Snakeman proves that Gear 4th has become a complete combat system rather than just brute force enhancement, with each variant tailored for specific opponent types. By the end of this fight, Luffy has earned respect from one of the most skilled fighters in the world through sheer determination and tactical innovation. This form demonstrates that sometimes victory isn't about overwhelming power. It's about finding the perfect tool for an impossible job. But what happens when the power doesn't come from within at all? Nightmare Luffy. Sometimes the answer comes from completely outside sources, and the results can be absolutely wild. Nightmare Luffy appears during the Thriller Bark arc as a temporary, shadow-enhanced form that hints at his true potential. This transformation comes from absorbing 100 shadows that Gecko Moria had stolen from his victims, lasting roughly 10 minutes. The process doesn't just make Luffy stronger, it completely transforms his physical appearance and capabilities. By absorbing these shadows, Luffy becomes significantly taller, bulkier, and exponentially more powerful than anything we've seen before. His entire body structure changes, making him look more imposing and physically dominant. The visual transformation alone tells you that something fundamental has shifted in his power level. This power came from stolen shadows, not Luffy's own training, so it was a short-lived spike, not a technique he could rely on. The form delivers a glimpse of how powerful Luffy could be under temporary external boosts, while maintaining incredible speed and agility that makes the combination almost unfair. Think of it like getting massive raw power without sacrificing the mobility that makes Luffy so dangerous in combat. Against the legendary zombie oars known as the Continent Puller, Nightmare Luffy demonstrates what happens when Luffy's creativity gets unlimited power to work with. He effortlessly manhandles this giant that had been overwhelming the entire Straw Hat crew. Grabbing oars by the hair and repeatedly slamming him into the ground shows just how dramatic the power boost really is. The transformation is brief but unforgettable, showing glimpses of the power ceiling Luffy would eventually reach years later. What makes this form fascinating is how it's achieved through external enhancement rather than internal mastery. Unlike his other techniques that require training and skill development, this power comes from outside sources. Nightmare Luffy proves that there's latent potential in Luffy's physiology that goes far beyond normal human limits. His body can handle and channel power levels that seem impossible for someone his size. Though temporary, this form serves as a preview of the reality-bending capabilities that would eventually become permanent. Looking back, Nightmare Luffy was essentially a sneak peek at what a god-tier Luffy would look like. The combination of overwhelming strength, maintained speed, and creative combat applications foreshadowed the ridiculous power levels he would eventually reach through his own development. But external boosts can only take you so far. True godlike power requires something much deeper. Gear 5th. This is it. The transformation that turns Luffy from powerful pirate into mythological tier fighter. We're watching the moment when everything we thought we knew about his abilities gets completely rewritten. Gear 5th first fully appears in the Wano final battle against Kaido, where the fruit is revealed as Hito Hito no Mi, model Nika, the sun god fruit. This isn't just another power upgrade. This is the revelation that Luffy's rubber powers were never actually rubber powers at all. They were manifestations of a mythical Zoan fruit that grants the abilities of a legendary deity. The visual hallmarks include white hair and glowing eyes, but the real transformation is in capability. Luffy gains cartoon-like physics that let him reshape reality, turn the environment into rubber, and fight with pure imagination, though huge energy drain can rapidly age him when it ends. Think of it like watching someone break the rules of a video game while still playing it. He can grab lightning bolts, stretch the ground like taffy, and make his attacks change size mid-flight based on what would be most effective. Advanced Conquerors and Armament Hockey integration becomes crucial for making Gear 5th viable against Yonko-tier opponents. Techniques like Bajrang Gun create attacks the size of islands, while Dawn Rocket showcases speed that defies physics entirely. The Bajrang Gun specifically becomes this massive fist that dwarfs mountains and delivers enough force to send Kaido crashing through Wano's underground. These aren't just bigger versions of old attacks. They're reality-bending techniques that operate on completely different principles. Against Kaido, one of the world's strongest beings, Gear 5th makes the impossible fight suddenly winnable. The battle becomes this joyful, almost playful combat where Luffy's laughter echoes across the entire island. What was previously a desperate struggle becomes something that actually looks fun for the first time. The Egghead rematch with Lucci demonstrates just how far Luffy has come, casually defeating awakened opponents with advanced Conqueror's haki. Lucci had also grown stronger since their last encounter, but Luffy treats him with almost dismissive ease. A single advanced Conqueror's haki-infused punch ends the fight before it really begins. This form represents the completion of Luffy's journey from stretchy rookie to mythological entity. Current consensus places Gear 5th Luffy at Yonko level power, proving that imagination truly has become his greatest weapon. The transformation from struggling with basic enemies to bending reality itself shows just how far one character can evolve. Looking at this complete journey, we've witnessed one of anime's most dramatic power escalations unfold step by step. Each gear solved a different combat problem and raised the ceiling dramatically, from speed enhancement to defensive tactics to reality manipulation. The gap between that rookie who struggled with basic enemies and the sun god who casually defeats Yonko-level opponents shows what's possible when creativity meets determination. We watch someone go from bouncing cannonballs to literally bending the laws of physics through pure imagination. That transformation from relatable underdog struggles to near mythical triumph proves that even the most impossible power gaps can be bridged through innovation and willpower. If you want timestamps or quick recaps of each fight, check the description and subscribe for more concise anime breakdowns.